Logie.
Mr Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Chair. And I rise to take probably a fairly short call on this Clause 3, the amendment to the Principal Act. I may not, Mr Brownlee, I may not spin it out. There's a valid point I would like to make in relation to this. And so this is just about amending the KiwiSaver Act 2006, and as has been mentioned earlier, it relates to the purpose of that primary act, which I also want to refer to, which is that the purpose of the KiwiSaver Act is to encourage a long-term savings habit and asset accumulation by individuals who are not in a position to enjoy standards of living in retirement similar to those in pre-retirement. So that's a key point I would like to address, because by amending this Act, we need to consider the purpose of the original Act and the role that the $1,000 Kickstarter incentive plays in achieving that purpose. And the advice that I'm looking at from Inland Revenue from 2011, when they were considering the removal of that Kickstarter program, was that, and I'm quoting, however, this could damage KiwiSaver's attractiveness to new members. There is a strong psychological boost attached with such an early initial increase in a member's funds, and on balance, the potential damage to public perception and to the initial attractiveness of KiwiSaver outweighs the diminishing value of fiscal savings made by reducing or removing the iconic Kickstarter payment. So there we have, just a few years ago, advice directly from Inland Revenue on evaluating the scheme and potential cost-benefit analyses of removing this exact provision of the Kickstarter contribution. So they're telling us pretty clearly there's the potential to undermine the entire purpose of the Act. And here we are in Parliament passing this under urgency with no ability for Inland Revenue to inform members of Parliament around whether they've potentially changed their mind since then, give them some benefit, the government, or not. And there's no ability for the public either to contribute to that point. And I would also I feel compelled as well around ethics just to mention the point around this, in this provision around, this is focused on the individuals who are not in a position to enjoy standards of living in retirement similar to those in pre-retirement. And I do feel compelled to mention, because it has particular value in relation to Kickstarter, the increasing number of New Zealanders now whose superannuation represents a step up rather than a step down in terms of their incomes. Because all too many people with disabilities who are locked out of the employment market or who reasons of sickness or on a benefit are living below the poverty line. And when they reach the age of retirement, to them, superannuation is just so much more generous than the conditions that they're living in on a daily basis. And we have such low poverty in our older population relative to our younger population, a rate of 3% compared to over 20% in our children, that we do need to be looking at that issue, and we do need to be looking at levels of debt in this country, and savings is a key aspect of that. And the most recent research that we have available to us shows that the top 10% in New Zealand own over 51% of the wealth. And the bottom 20% of New Zealanders, and that's that's a fifth of our population, 20%, stating the obvious, but they have zero or little wealth and are often in negative. They're in debt. And this $1,000, this whole purpose of KiwiSaver is in some part to shift that around, to actually just say that as a society, we're all better off, the more equal we are. And it is the role of government when the market fails. And actually, I would just say, in terms of helping us look after each other, recognise that we're all in this together. There's a role for government, and that relates to the purpose of this clause and the bill of the purpose of the KiwiSaver Act. Thank you, Mr Chair.